Back on Sports Bet, time for a big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Orioles and the Yankees. Yankees at home, $1.55, 9 the total. Gallardo against Pineda. Hey, this is a huge series now because it could, if the Yankees sweep this 4-game series, maybe they become buyers instead of sellers. So this is huge. Pineda threw the ball well in the first half of the season, but how did he end up with a 3-9 record with an ERA of 5 and change, Teddy?
It's a little bit baffling. I mean, you look at the numbers. The guy's got great pop. 10.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's number 6 in all of baseball. He's got good control. He's only walking less than 2.5 batters per 9 innings. He's got a decent ground ball rate. Not great, but decent. Nothing that's going to raise any red flags. 44%. And he's got a great swinging strike percentage. 13.7. That's number 5 in MLB. All right? Then you look at the advanced metrics. You say, hey, his xFIP is number 3.2. It's 3.26. That's number 8 of 96 qualifying pitchers. There's Sierra at 3.33, also number 8. He's number 7 in strikeout to walk rate. So we're talking about a guy that's had top 10 stuff, and he's run really, really, really bad. When contact has been made, Pauly, it's been good contact. You look at the home run to fly ball rate. Check out this chart right here. The guys who are just getting unlucky with those fly balls or giving up some hard hit fly balls. Pineda ranked number 93 in that category. Almost 20% of his fly balls have gone out of the ballpark this season. And here's the kicker. This might be the biggest one of all, Paul.
Yep.
The major gap between the windup and the stretch. When no one's on, he's been great. With runners on base, look at the batting average is 315. The slugging, 591. Now, you question his psyche right now. Does he believe that he has top 10 stuff? Or does he think he's a 3-9/5.56 ERA type of pitcher? Though it's worth noting that the Tuesday margin gave the Yankees a bonus. We talked about earlier, the BMC part of the bullpen got the night off. They'll all be fresh, rested, and ready for tonight's matchup.
I think it's the latter. Because I think no matter where he goes, those numbers follow him around. He can't hide. They put him up there on the scoreboard. That's what his numbers are. So he can be confident. But every time he looks, that's embarrassing. 3-9 with an ERA of 5 and change. So that
he's making good money to put up numbers like that. No question.
So unlike Pineda, Gallardo hasn't had elite stuff in years, and now it's how can he survive the way he's been pitching lately?
I don't think he can. He really hasn't given the Orioles much. He has 10 starts this season. He's only lasted 48 innings, or 48.1 innings. So he's not even lasting 5 innings per start. The ERA, 5.77. The FIP, 5.12. The xFIP, 5.72. The Sierra, 5.69. There's nothing out of those stats has looked any good. The strikeout per 9 ratio, second worst of his career. The walk through 9 ratio, the worst of his career. The ground ball rate, the worst of his career. The swinging strike percentage, the worst of his career. And yet somehow, in those 10 starts from Giovanni Gallardo, the Orioles are 7-3. Go figure, Paul.
How about the Chris Davis illness? And the offense has really struggled since he went to the hospital.
Yeah, it sure has. This team isn't hitting at all right now. They weren't hitting before he went to the hospital. And again, he's listed as questionable for tonight. Don't know if he's going to go. The markets don't seem to think that he's going to play. All the early money has come on the Yankees for this one. But let's look. The Orioles 2-2-1-1 runs scored the last 4 games. 3 straight losses. And, you remember that interview we had over the All-Star break, a second half preview, where Drew Martin was saying that Baltimore's his number 1 regression team for the second half. Said bet against the Orioles. Well, 3 straight losses now for Baltimore. A bullpen that's not pitching great, a lineup that's missing their best hitter, and a starting pitcher on the hill tonight who I wouldn't bet with your money, Paul, even with that 7-3 record in his 10 starts.
Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Giants and the Red Sox. Red Sox $1.85, 10.5 the total. Kane against Pomerantz. Pomerantz and the effective knuckle curve that he threw 40% of the time. It worked in Petco. Will it work at Fenway, Teddy?
I don't know. That pitch averages about 79 miles an hour, and he throws it a lot, or he threw it a lot at Petco. And you look at the numbers for the season, 8-7, 2.47 ERA. Not many of his fly balls has left the park. Just 8.8% of the fly balls have gone out versus a league average of 12.8%. But when you look at the advanced metric stats, they normalize for the ballparks. The xFIP, 3.62. The Sierra, 3.72. So that 2.47 ERA says, yeah, there's a lot of Petco involved in that. And remember, how many of the flyouts that Pomerantz got from righties in those West Coast ballparks now end up hitting the wall in Fenway? It's concerning. I mean, my biggest concern is that Boston made a bad gamble in trading for a guy with good stuff, but not necessarily a fit for this park, not for Fenway or for Camden or for the Rogers Center where their top AL East rivals are.
Well, how strange is this? Well, it's not strange, actually, because he came from the Padres. This is the Giants' third look against them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and a lot of times the lefty in their first time around the league, they're tough to see. You know, there's a lot of value in supporting young lefties against lineups that haven't seen them before. But Giants have, as you mentioned, he did pitch well against the Giants twice, but they have seen him twice already this season. It's not an unfamiliar lefty. And, of course, it's a Giants team that's ice cold right now. You know, they went to the All-Star break. We talked about it yesterday. 40-15. Well, they haven't led at any point in any game since the All-Star break. 0-4 with 4 ugly losses.
Well, now they believe Kane is healthy, and I don't know if that's a good thing. Now, this guy hasn't pitched since early June. He's been hurt. And you look at this, Matt Kane, the last 3 seasons, this graphic, 5-16, ERA of almost 5, and look at the FIP, 4.86, and he got roughed up in his rehab starts.
Oh, he got clocked. He went to Single A San Jose on Friday, 9 runs in 4 innings. He threw 93 pitches. His take? Well, I got my work in. I got a lot of work in a short period of time. Before the injury, his swinging strike percentage was the worst of his career. His ground ball rate was the second worst of his career. And Fenway is a really tough place if you're not missing bats and you allow contact in the air. We said that Peavy might have some problems with the similar style on yesterday's show, and obviously we saw Big Pappy and Brock Holt hit homers off him last night.
Yep, as always, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Up next, the New England Patriots and Money Time, the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SPRPicks.com.
Hey, SportsBit viewers, why don't you catch our MLB Odds Couple show for today, July 20th. I got a couple plays I'm really liking. I could tell you right now, and then you wouldn't have to watch the show, but I'm not going to.
Pistol
that
Pete.
means you got to tune into the show.
That's right, Pistol Pete's on fire. Hey, get the best of both worlds. Come on, come this way too.
Back on SportsBit, AFC East deep dive continues. The New England Patriots win total 10.5. Has not moved in any significant way since the Brady suspension was announced. Last year, 12-4 straight up, 7-8-1 ATS, 9-7 in the over-under. 12 straight up wins with only 7 ATS covers. They won 5 games by a touchdown or less, 0-4-1 ATS in those games. The mainstream numbers: 6th in offense, 9th in defense, 5th in turnovers, tied for 7th in yards per play. The Brady 4-game suspension could actually help them in December, as 3 of the first 4 games are at home when it's Garoppolo time, so hopefully the old guy will be fresh come December in playoff time. He says he'll play till he's 45. I actually believe him, although you see the drop-off with these guys as they get into their late 30s with what happened with Peyton Manning as well. Tom turns 39 in August. Still 36-7 touchdown to interception ratio. What do you think, Teddy, and what do we know about Garoppolo?
All right, there's so much stuff to talk about from that intro, Pauly, but let's start with this. The markets have not moved in any significant way since Tom Brady's suspension was announced, which tells us 2 things. 1, it was already factored into the number, and 2, there's support out there for Jimmy Garoppolo. And from everything that I've read, lots of positive reports on this kid. The local beats writers like him. They said he's looked good in practice. They said that when you have the entire preseason to get him ready, there are things to like about Jimmy Garoppolo. He's not Tom Brady. He's not going to be Tom Brady. But as you mentioned, 3 of the 4 games at home, the one tough one, or the toughest of the bunch at Arizona on the opening night of the season. There's another thing I want to talk about that you mentioned in your open there, Paul.
Yep.
The 12 straight up wins versus only 7 point spread covers.
Yeah.
The 5 games that they won by a TD or less, they didn't cover any of them. So obviously, when you talk about teams that are value-laden from a point spread perspective, New England's not one of those teams. They are the ultimate public team in the NFL over the long term. and when you're looking for week in, week out value betting on the Patriots, it's hard to imagine that you're going to find. Doesn't mean you're not going to find spots to bet them, but week in, week out, I would be surprised if this team is capable of finishing a whole lot better than 500 ATS, just given the market support that they've attracted.
The best organization in sports. 9 of the last 10 years, they've won at least 11 games. Come on. How do they do it? Of course, Brady, Belichick, a smart front office, and a lot of guys who will take less than what's offered out there to try to go to a contender and win a championship. They brought Bennett in, tight end to help out Gronk, Chris Long, Nate Washington, and pot roast. Terrence Knighton comes over into the fold. Less than $10 million combined, and they swapping a 4th-round pick for a 6th-rounder in the Bennett trade with the Bears. Now, the skill position players, they were decimated by injuries last year. Offensive line injuries. They had Edelman who went out. Dion Lewis injury was huge. They can find him. Brady threw him all the time on 3rd down, and Blunt got hurt as well. But Edelman, Gronk, who else can I throw to if I'm Brady, Teddy? Not a lot of depth there and playmakers.
Yeah, that is probably one of my biggest concerns with New England is the lack of depth at the receiving corps. Where's the burner on the outside? Where's the guy who's going to stretch the defense? Gronk's been great at doing that in the middle, but since Aaron Hernandez went to jail and that 2 tight end look hasn't been the same, I worry about the receiving depth. I absolutely do. But you talk about all the guys they were able to bring in. Again, Bennett, Long, Washington, Knighton, less than $10 million because everyone will play for New England for less than market value.
Right.
Because they want to win a title. And that's an edge that the Patriots have that, say, the Detroit Lions don't. Where people will play below market price in New England. They won't do it in so many other cities. You talk about the organization. It's the best organization in all of sports. And the fact that guys will play here for cheap. The other thing the Patriots have done, they've coached up their quarterbacks. Think about Matt Castle won 11 games here.
Yep.
They had Ryan Mallett as a decent backup quarterback. Brian Hoyer is a decent backup quarterback. Once those guys left, well, certainly in Mallett's case, nothing happened. In Castle's case, never was any good again. So it's not just the guys that are willing to play there. They get coached up better than anyone. They really do. And look no further than the final play of the Super Bowl win over Seattle as a clear illustration of how much coaching matters for New England.
Yes, good point there. Speaking of coaching, they get Scarnecchia back to coach the offensive line. They got him out of retirement, and I know there was a lot of injuries, but the offensive line stunk last year.
Yeah, it really did. Brady took 38 sacks. He's going to turn 39 in August. This guy cannot take 38 sacks this year. They have solid offensive line depth. They're healthy now, and they got a former number 1, Jonathan Cooper, hoping he's going to come alive after failing in Arizona. So Scarnecchia certainly an addition, a positive addition for a team that doesn't need a positive addition. Of course, we got questions about the pass rush. They let Chandler Jones go. He led the team in sacks last year, but that front 7 looks solid even without him. So does the secondary. If the Pats go south this year in any way, it's not likely to be because of defensive weakness, barring an injury barrage.
All right, tell us about the schedule.
Well, in a nutshell, last year's schedule, slightly below league average. This year's schedule, in terms of toughness, also slightly below league average. They don't have any real tough scheduling spots where you're looking at, that stands out. They do have a stretch where they only play 1 home game between week 6 and week 13. And that home game, not going to be an easy one against Seattle. They have their bye, and they have a stretch of 4 to 5 on the road during that span. But they also play 4 of their last 5 at home. Gives them a solid shot to close out the season. And then, 3 of their last 5 at home. One of the road games at Miami in week 17. Always a concern, that week 17 game for New England. Even though they've been winning 11, 12 games year in, year out. Last year, there were no-shows week 17 in Miami, resting starters, and you worry in a situation where a team's lined at 10.5 if there's an obvious week 17 game where they may not bring their best effort.
All right, money time, play of the day. I'm going rogue here. I'm taking the Patriots over 10.5, as we mentioned. 9 of the last 10 years, they've won at least 11 games. The division stinks. Miami's down. I'm not buying the Buffalo hype again. I'm not going to fall for that. And the Jets, they can't be serious with Geno Smith. Still, they haven't agreed with a contract on a deal with Fitzpatrick. Belichick will coach them up. As they won 11 games with Castle, and okay with Garoppolo, and we have a top 3 quarterback with Brady. 11 wins, at least for the Patriots, make it 10 of the last 11 years. We finish it out tomorrow with those Jets, and the AFC East will be finished. A lot of day games as well. A lot to go over as we get close to the football season on SportsBit. Betting Insight today.